Okay, can everybody see my screen okay? Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Why don't we start with a quick round of introductions? Just because in case there's some new folks, I don't think Vivek, have we met before?
No, no,
No,
I missed the
right?
meeting last week. I was traveling. I can
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
Uh, I work as an engineering manager. I oversee data operations and ML operations for Shift. We are a part of Target.com, and we are responsible for all infrastructure related things, which supports all kinds of data movements across the company and the Target.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming. I can go next. So my name's Lisa. I help run the DataOps initiative here. We're a little bit quiet today in terms of people, but usually this room is a little bit more packed, which is really exciting. And yeah, I am a product manager, but I help manage an open source project called Apache Gravitino. And really, it's like this federated data catalog that also manages like AI assets as well. And so there's a lot of interest there in using metadata, I think, to empower data ops specifically and just to wrangle a lot of the open source ecosystems and tooling. And that's a lot of my interest for sure. Victor or Roxanne, I don't know if you want to go next.
Ladies first.
Sorry, I was telling the chat, the Slack to join. I'm Roxanne. I work for the Continuous Delivery Foundation. I do all of the content. So I organize the events and do the website, and I help with initiatives like this one. Yeah, I will post your blog post if you write one. So if you have any questions about the CDF, let me know.
I'm Victor Liu, free agent. Just love what's happening in open source community. Just I guess everything, mostly everything AI related interests me. So including data.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for making it this morning. I'm really happy to see returning faces, of course, and new faces as well. So I think Roxanne, you put a link here that we were featured in the LF newsletter if you want to discuss a little
Yeah,
bit.
so I submit to the LF newsletter every month. We have we can put a few things. So I put our initiative. You can just search CDF because every project of the Linux Foundation is in there. It's very long.
There we
Yeah.
go.
And I try to put images because not everyone does, and then we get more attention, I feel like. But someone did say they learned from it from the Linux Foundation, so maybe it was here.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I've also been sharing this a little bit too, I think within the data engineering communities. And so we'll see some more folks kind of trickle in over time, which is awesome. Thank you for doing that. I
No
think one of the
worries.
things that would be interesting is right now the landing page that I'm using for this initiative is like the blog post that we we wrote. And I'm wondering if there's a better place to redirect folks because I think even the GitHub repo is a little stale and maybe we can have like a CDF subpage or something. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
was gonna say I can make a nicer page, make it like really nice, and we can feature blog posts, the new ones that we write, or whatever you want basically. And like put we're meeting at this date next and all that nice stuff. I can do that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So we can add that to our agenda as well. Awesome. The next thing that I wanted to discuss, let me just add this here, is what we want to do with these meetings in particular. And so I think one of the really cool things about our last meeting was that we kind of just got into a group discussion with, what maybe an SBOM would have looked like and kind of the struggles that we had within our organizations, and then some of the really cool topics that maybe we covered in the general data ops talk. But I do think that there's some room here to have either formal discussions or presentations if we wanted to. So I wanted to get some thoughts either from, Vivek or Victor, if maybe having like a birds of a feather discussion, like choosing a specific topic that we would have a group discussion around each meeting as like an open platform versus say like having somebody come in and present a project would be more interesting to folks.
I was thinking if there's a way to determine a topic for discussion before the next meeting, that way we will all have time to research it or figure out what are the three things we want to talk about and what are the 2 or 3 things we want to accomplish during the given period. That is what I'm leaning towards. So I think birds of a feather approach might be worth trying.
Yeah.
Presentations become challenging in my opinion because if for whatever reason, if people don't have time and they're not able to present in the meeting, well,
Yeah.
again fall back into the words of the feather pattern.
Yeah, I also agree. I think that one of the great things about this platform is that it's kind of the forum of the data engineers and the DevOps engineers to get together. And so if we're having all of these different perspectives highlighted through like their equal contribution, I think that there's a little bit more learning that can be done there versus this is a specific project, please use it. Right. Victor, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel one thing is not clear what this meeting, because data ops cover a lot of things. So, like for example, the build material that probably belongs to the other communities. I can have discussed here, but that's not the main topic here. And data like the governance, those things can be discussed here again. I think it belongs to other community as well. If not DOK, data on Kubernetes, maybe somewhere else. But what I feel what's unique about this meeting being part of a CD Foundation is how does it extend the CI/CD, the DevOps, MLOps to DataOps. So I think probably to get people interested, maybe the first step is create a landscape. It doesn't have to be a paper. Just saying, we're doing this documenting the landscape. And so if you want your CI/CD tool, whether it's GitHub's Flux and Argo, Kapton, whatever, Jenkins, whatever it is, if you want to be, in this document, whether it's going to be become a blog or a paper, come and let's discuss, right? So this way we get more immediately some interest to, so you're focusing on DevOps, right? Because everybody is so far, right? All those platforms, frameworks. But how are you supporting MLOps? Okay, fine. You're already considering about that. What about DataOps, which you probably haven't really gone into detail yet, right? So that kind of a landscape, we can do kind of outreach and get all the people related from, within CDF and CNCF to come here and have a conversation. And this way we can get kind of a current landscape and then kind of gap on what is not being really discussed and considered for DataOps.
Awesome. I really love that idea. And Victor, you're always coming in with the great takes as always. I think that because data ops is such a wide and vague topic that we get to really define it as we're moving through this. Like I've seen a lot of manifests out there, but I think that people get frustrated with the tooling, right? How do you actually do data ops? What is something that I actually would want to try and use, and how I would use my pre-existing infrastructure for these new workloads that I have to do. Right? It's not necessarily about just adding more and more tools. I think as DevOps people, we're already a little bit wary of constantly sprawling ourselves. So I think that concentrating on the landscape would be a good idea too. So maybe along with the landing page and the landscape, we can start building that image of what the data ops is, and then start getting more people into that conversation. And I really like the idea of keeping to birds of a feather, because let's say we're going through the landscape and we're evaluating some of the new tools, we can discuss how or if, our organizations are using something similar in that case. And those sort of discussions can organically become, this ebb and flow within the community that we then turn into like these blog posts and then kind of create more standards around, if that makes sense. So I think that that
Yeah.
works really well.
Yeah, the two idea actually is can be combined. And so, for example, we broadcast this message. Roseanne is going to write a blog every day. No, we are talking about data ops here. Everything, as long as you have ops in your product or product description, come here. Let's discuss, right? And then after that, maybe after a couple of meetings, we say, okay, cool. Whoever will go first, Jenkins or Argo, can you give a presentation for this bird feather discussion in this meeting about how does Argo handle data, right? And give your idea, your perspective. And this way, everybody learn from each other and also kind of see where's the gap.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think that's the ideal flow that we should be working towards, and something that's probably quite a bit more maintainable over time as well. So, and they're ones that we can have multiple discussions over and over again. Something like using Argo for AI/ML workloads is like, I feel like that in itself is its own working group.
Yeah. Reality is, regardless of its data ops or not, most likely it has to be integrated to existing frameworks for DevOps. So even if it's a not totally separate project, it still have to be in a way interoperable with existing DevOps frameworks.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this kind of relates back to our previous discussion from last meeting too, where Vivek, we had discussed this idea of like a data bomb, and then Victor brought up this group that he knew that was doing an AI bomb or an AIS bomb. And there was a lot of really rich information that they brought up too that we had not been caught up in. But personally, I think that the data engineering community is very like they have no idea that this project even exists. And so much of it is, I think that's the knowledge gap there. Is like if we bring a group like that to facilitate a discussion around data supply chains here, we can figure out where that gap is happening at the lakehouse level, because it seems like they're quite focused on the data set level, right? And that's something that we're probably very interested in as well. And then bringing in, say, like a data contracts person to actually facilitate that discussion of what it would take to enact something like that, and if it's useful for our organizations.
It's a good idea, yeah.
So, Roxanne, what would it take for us to start on this landscape? Let's kind of figure out what the next steps are there, because I've never created a landscape before.
Well, can you open the link I put? Do you want a landscape, or do you want to add to our landscape? Because we already have one. You could just put a section and then put, all the logos, then it would be easy.
And the result might be here. But I mean, this is a great place. For example, we already know most of the player here, Tecton, Jenkins. One thing I don't understand is like for example, Argo and Flux. And they're not on this picture. So
Flux is up there, yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Is. And Argo is up there as well.
Oh, okay. It's just small. I guess don't see it. So,
so basically, anyone can add any logo. We just ask the community to do it, and then we approve it. Basically, it has to have 500 GitHub stars or something to make the cut, and that's it.
Yeah, the end goal for this discussion is not just put it on this map since we already know them. The idea is let all these people from all these different groups come here and join us in this meeting and give their presentation and their idea and what's missing, what's the gap for DataOps, and then come up with a kind of white paper or documentation at least to what's next for DataOps.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we can do all of that. Next steps is just we decide what should be on the landscape, at least a few, and we start chatting, and then I think it'll spark ideas, and then you add more.
Yeah, I'm in favor of actually starting a new landscape. That's the hard route, in my opinion, and a little bit less graceful. But the idea here is that, let's say I'm a data ops person, or I'm interested in data ops, and I come to this landscape and I go, okay, there's already continuous automation, there's continuous integration, but how do I actually, like kind of Victor said, how do I use, say, something like Spinnaker for AI/ML workloads? And I want to be able to have like something about this little blurb that adds something in there, right? Like about what that might look like and what that reference might be. And I think that as the data ops landscape grows, it's probably going to get quite messy because we'll include a lot of other tools, like even Airflow or something like that will kind of end up here. And there might be, it might grow past one section is my idea, especially if we kind of stick to the curriculum that we have.
Yeah, I agree on that too. So there are also things like that's not on this list. Things like Kubeflow, right? Kubeflow, ML flow, those kind of not DevOps, but it's kind of workflow framework. That should be part of this picture of DataOps because it's unrelated. Because I don't know the others, but at least Kubeflow already have kind of a frameworks for how to manage data, right? So
Yeah,
they are pretty
absolutely.
big in the CNCF too. So they should be in this picture, but it's hard to fit them anywhere in this picture.
Yeah.
I can ask, I don't know exactly how it works, or how much effort or all of that it is, but I will ask and then I'll let you all know. And
Yeah. And then next meeting, I think we'll kind of break into what sections we want and kind of
Yeah.
what that might look like. We have a good starting point with the curriculum that we have. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of really cool stuff that can be made. And as we're adding new things to the landscape, we can have these projects present and kind of, define their workloads. And if we can't figure out how, say, Jenkins is used in this case, then maybe we should have Jenkins actually present and then create more materials around that in the community in general. I was just talking with some data stacks folks, and like the entirety of their stuff still runs on Jenkins. And so and I'm sure that they're not the only like data company that does that, right? So
So I think I just participate in a lot of communities, so I've seen enough how to give incentives for projects. In this case, it's not company, right? It's project how to participate. I think it's usually the first move advantage is to get buy-in from developers who want to participate and contribute to that project. So in this case, after we get some kind of a what we want to do with this group kind of thing ready and show it to like Jenkins and Tecton and just say, okay, so whoever want to present, you get the first move opportunity to, we'll record it. It will be, depend on what you want or not. It could be on YouTube. It could be, in a published blog or whatever. And this way you can, attract the developers who think, okay, cool. We can use Jenkins or Tecton for DataOps, and this is what they can do. And there are also gaps we can help them get it done. Whoever comes later will have will have the opportunity at least 2 weeks later, right? But it won't be right away.
yeah, I totally agree. I think that having that formal workflow for projects is actually really important. So we can do the outreach to some of those contributors and to some of those communities, and then we can have them present and kind of help figure out those gaps. All right. I think that makes sense. Is there anything else that we want to discuss on the landscape before we move on and kind of figure out what our next steps would be? Yeah, I think we're good. I think we also lost a member of Vivek here, so maybe he's got a conflicting meeting, or maybe he'll come back.
no,
But that's
no, he wrote that his computer was force rebooting.
oh no, that's never good to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of these projects too, it's been a while since I've looked at this landscape, and so I have to kind of remind myself what's all on here. But I think it'll be a good push for modernization too for a lot of these projects as they're seeing this new landscape come out.
And there are so many CNCF projects that you can also include if they fit in, because their landscape is even when it's crazy, basically.
Since it started in a CDF, so probably the priority will be given to
Yes.
the main contributor in CDF, Jenkins and Tecton. If they want to talk first, yeah, they can talk first.
Yeah. I also have contacts to all the projects, so when you're ready,
All right, sounds good. Okay, so I think the next couple of things that are on our list for the rest of today are around the blog post drafts. This has been a little bit slow on my side, but I'm happy to go into some of this stuff. So again, we had that meeting. I would like to use this blog post to highlight instead the actual project instead of trying to create something new, but also understanding the pivot that might come in there. As much as I love the AI bomb and SPDX project, I think that there is still kind of a gap there between the Lakehouse materials and the software bomb. So I'm going to do a bit more research into that before I kind of wrap up this particular blog post. But
Yeah.
Victor, would you want to be an editor on this after it's done?
To be honest, I'm even for SPDX, I'm not. I'm just a participant. I'm not expert. So,
Yeah.
but one thing I'm having fun doing, I guess that's the right word, because I don't really So in that community, I know that SPDX itself doesn't focus on data, but the idea is SPDX basically covers all the ops. Whether it's software, AI model, or data ops. It's kind of a highest level of metadata that's being positioned. Then when it comes to data, it's being built to be interoperable with other metadata for data, specifically for data, right?
Mhm.
The ML Common Croissant is one new player, but it's because it's dedicated to a lot of metadata for AI ML, is becoming adopted quite widely, at least. But even a bigger picture, much bigger, is the concept called initiative called Dublin Core. It's a long time metadata. So everything else you can think of, including the DCAT, which is Dublin Core metadata terminology, and the other one is schema.org. All that kind of come from schema.org. So yeah, so that is exactly, that's the one. So if you want to go to Barcelona, that's a definitely nice trip to talk about data standard. So
Mhm.
just think languages, right? So when you like, see, if you have healthcare data and then you want to do some research, whether it's public health, or even using genetic research to integrate the two data sets from healthcare and scientific data. When it comes to when you try to merge data, because terminology is not clear, it's really hard for AI to get a grasp. I mean, really, people is easy. People know that it's just a mess. You have to learn the domain terminology first, but AI doesn't know. So Dublin Core, in a way, is all those SPDX is trying to be interoperable in a way. So in other words, when you have create a software related to models, related to hardware, related licensing, it will also reference to the actual data, which have all this Croissant and DCAT metadata. So that's what's happening in that world. So if you have a separate data DBOM for data warehouse, for catalog, definitely, because catalog is domain specific, right? But to create a whole new DBOM standard, I'm not sure. I guess I don't get the picture yet.
Yeah, it's not about creating a new standard. It's about actually creating some of these pre-existing projects and fitting them a little bit more to data engineering workflows. I think creating a new standard is a little bit outside of the scope of this particular working group, but I do like the DCMI here in the Dublin Core materials. It's a little bit more aligned with, I think, library science and ontologies, which is really a lot of the foundations of data catalogs. So that makes sense to me. I think one of the things that's really tough right now in terms of gaps that we have within the community is we have a lot of these specs and standards out, but I think when it comes to implementing them actually within data contracts and embedded at these large big data levels, it's quite hard, especially if you're implementing something like mesh. And so a lot of these movements tend to work in parallel, but don't actually cross over where they actually need to. And so, is there a way that we can maybe facilitate this with tools and kind of create some of that knowledge sharing that's around?
Yeah, I said I'm newbie in the area actually too. So I think this could, while we're expanding the participations and getting not only the DevOps and MLOps people, but also the people who would know data well. Maybe at that time we'll have some idea of how to create a data bomb, the one you positioned there.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't see how yet. At this point.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is that we'll just create this blog post to kind of create some buzz around it, and then the conversation will kind of start happening in the community. I think if we have this, expectation on ourselves that every single blog post that we have is going to set a complete standard, I think that's going to be a very high bar for us to try and clear. But I
Yeah.
think generally speaking, even within the DevOps communities themselves, like kind of making this gap known, and that this is something that the data community has not fully adopted yet, is, I think, really important. So that's good enough, in my opinion, to do.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, I have questions. I don't have answers. I have a lot of questions, not answers.
Yeah,
I think
and
blogs can also be questions. They don't have,
yeah.
yeah.
1000%. The blogs can be questions. If we make every single thing a white paper, I think it'll be really hard to keep up with. So, but yeah, the other draft that we have is the data cloud blog post. And so it's been a minute since I've looked at this and kind of connected things within the data on Kubernetes community. But I think that there is also really good thought concept around here, but we do need to have a little bit more, I think, structure towards the goal and what we wanted to do, and specifically kind of creating this. And so maybe one of the things that we can focus on is either the content that we want, or just sort of what the scope of this particular blog post will look like. I think that we've just kind of brought up the idea here, but not necessarily defined what the takeaway for the person will actually be.
Yeah.
Or not, it's
So
to get started here.
so I think this is my idea about this is really the you can say the control plane of data orchestration or data ops. Because you get the engine, right? So let's say Jenkins, Tekton, all those DevOps frameworks get evolved, and able to orchestrate the data flow within in the AI ML workflow, or in the corporation. Whether the data come from databases, data lake, unstructured data, and all that stuff. But still, how do you control it so that this is more well governed, well secured, right? Just imagine an AI agent, having the powerful. Just to give you a solution, right? For example, there are solutions called Open OPA, Open Policy Agent, within CNCF community, and couple. So this give like a policy kind of policy framework to give you fine-grained authentication authorization. You know what? Let me do this. You're talking something else. I find something I think that can you explain better where it comes from?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Roxanne, I feel like with where things are with the blog post right now, maybe we can create like I can help collaborate with you to create maybe a guide for that main landing page on sort of like what the blog post workflow will be. So that we're not in such a sprawl.
No, that's makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if do other branches of the CDF, or if the CDF itself has another like blog post flow that either is recommended to the ambassadors or something similar.
I mean, they started, but it didn't really work, so I'm open to ideas. I think it's also because I haven't been involved. If you want me to start pushing, I will. Yeah. Basically, it's usually me, and then I have my like task list. I have a Asana with all the blogs, and I have deadlines, and I poke the people.
Yeah, there's probably some sort of middle ground in between here that we can use to kind of give people a little bit more structure in terms of what to write on.
Yes.
Because I think that there's a lot of expertise within the community without having to. Yeah, I think it's just the structure that people are missing. I don't think we're too hard on timelines to roll out blog posts.
No, what
Honest,
we
yeah.
could do is like have a G folder with your template. I think you already have it. And you
Yeah.
just, we could have a doc with all the themes that people could write about. And each meeting we can like open it and say, does anyone have time to write one of these? Are you interested? We can put their name, and then once I have a name, that's easier, you know. I can
Yeah,
I
I think
shared
Thank you,
the
Vic.
link to the Oracle database documentation. So so you can tell that being the database has the largest market share have reasons, right? Other than performance and the traditional aspect of it, there is also security. In the past, the security was all done within the database, within kind of a when you log in, you have your own user, you have very fine-grained privileges to even the row level. There's a thing called Oracle, row level security. That's label security that give you row level access, fine-grained authorization there. So with the latest versions, you have like central managed database with integrating. If you have a user in the Microsoft Active Directory or Azure Directory, actually, this is actually the wrong example. Azure Directory, you'll be able to give a fine-grained, identification, access control, both authentication and authorization. And so the problem with open source community is, especially those vector databases, there's nothing built in for fine-grained authentication authorization. So all the access is based on what middle tier want to do, right? But that's okay if the middle tier built in all those static, logic to control the access. However, with AI it has everything. AI can do everything. But imagine AI it's an AI safety issue, right? If AI agent becomes superhuman, decided, oh, cool, I have all the access. I'm going to change whatever I want to tell the nuclear reactor, just go, by myself. so there's no more restriction on what AI agent can do. So that's why having this fine-grained kind of control plane to manage the data access, govern both the authentication and authorization in a fine-grained level is needed. And at this point, there's nothing that's in the open source world that's doing that.
that's funny because we're helping build one of those things that's doing that. Although we're tackling it at the data catalog level, and so we haven't. What Apache Gravitino is doing is that we have like a push down permission management system, and we have like a lot of security policies around, say, like SQL-based policies and other sort of like path-based policies that you embed within the catalog itself. And so depending on what's trying to access that catalog and that data and query it, you're going to do your authorization and authentication in that layer. But we haven't explored it within the Kubernetes control plane and tried to have Kubernetes interact with that in any sort of way. So that might be a really interesting direction, actually.
Yeah, so instead of Kubernetes taking care of trying to run everything, trying to run a full Oracle database or any database on the Kubernetes platform, it can probably handle a smaller kind of control plane type of database. So this way, when a corporation want to move their data lake, data warehouse from public cloud to another public cloud, between public cloud and private cloud, it's much easier. That control plane is much portable if you put it within the the Kubernetes ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting. Okay. I think that scope sounds like a really chewy idea. And I think that even again, just defining the scope of the blog post, we don't need to define the answer. We just need to define the problem and the whole. And I think that's a really good problem to define and then start the conversation around so that then we can also reach out to other folks within the community and see how they would want to tackle a problem like this and kind of what some real world scenarios they might be dealing with that are relevant might be around this. I think like even just what you mentioned, everything that you said sounds like a blog post, like almost like it just needs to have some refinement around it. And so like the outline that you've kind of proposed just now, I think that's great. And I'm happy to help contribute to it and get some folks on that in any sort of way. It's just that we kind of need maybe that specific outline that you had maybe at the top so that we can understand maybe the core ideas that we have.
Yeah, this is the one I created like 15 minutes, I think I did.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so that it's just an idea I created to have a conversation with Paul. But after that, there's a lot of conflict. I cannot join the DOK meeting. I don't see, the enthusiasm in that community about this. That's why I kind of okay, let's just put it aside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I remember that this was something that was like super like done just to have something down, and I really appreciate it for sure. Would you be open just at the top, just throwing some bullet points of what you said so that then we can create a little bit more of a guideline around it, and then we know how to kind of throw some more contributors in?
Sure, sure. Do you want to, I think we talked about this. Do you think, first of all, DOK, just based on the name and scope, seems to be a good fit. I don't know whether
Mhm.
there's any interest in that community. Do you think should at least have a meeting with Paul to see whether he's on board with going deeper into this?
Yeah, I think that he would be. We plan to do multiple materials with DOK, and so I don't think it has to be restricted to just having this blog post. But what I would add is that with the DOK community, we can start bringing this conversation into that Slack and into those meetings as well to see who else is interested in kind of defining and contributing on these problems, and at least just like speaking on them, I think is kind of the idea. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and just like a few bullet points at the top so that we like know exactly what to bring to people, and then we can start fleshing out some more of it and including more community members as we go in. I think that this is something that we can also bring to the CNCF like AIML working group as well. I think that's a really good place to bring this to. And so, and even maybe
But
even some of the open SSL folks.
yeah. So this, if you look at the context, it's basically what I just described is already described in the. I know it's more word. It's not bullet point, but it's already described in here.
Yeah, yeah. I totally get that. I think that just having some more sections broken up though will help people kind of understand it a little bit more at a glance, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like headers, you mean?
Yeah, like headers and just stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe a few bullets of how it would be expanded.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. I think that's about it that I had for this agenda, though. There is also something else that I wanted to bring up, which is whether or not we wanted to try having some sort of meetup at Open Source Summit North America. Um, I think that having like a social would be nice, but I don't know. I know that some folks will do like a little after mini meetup, which we can do. I run another meetup called Data for AI, and we can create something like that. But yeah, I don't know if we've done something similar in the past.
You mean me?
Yeah, or anything like that. Yeah, just you.
So we're planning the meeting at lunch. We haven't really planned like an evening event that's formal. We can, like the DC has done a dinner with the ambassadors that were there. So
Yeah.
there is an opportunity to do that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can talk to DC as well. I'm also happy to help sponsor anything that might like come as a cost. I know
That
that,
would be nice, yeah.
yeah, I know at last year's Open Source Summit North America, there were a couple like meetups that were hosted by third parties. So we can do something like that as well. I'm happy to do that, and we can feature some of the updates that we have here and maybe have like some speakers that might already be there, or we could just keep it mostly social.
Yeah. And if you want, if it's on the 2 days that we have, I might be able to have it in the agenda, and if not, we would put it in the slides for sure,
Yeah.
and on our website and all that.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't have to be the biggest thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
the sooner we decide, the sooner we can find a spot for it, basically.
Yeah, well, since I'll be there anyways, I'm happy to host it. So, and since the finances aren't too much of a hurdle, why don't we just have like a DataOps meetup, and we can either have it as a lunch or an evening thing and have it as an extension of the program if possible, but if not, we can just promote it throughout the program.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can still have your like lunchtime meeting if you like the meeting room to just work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually sounds like a good spot to have like a little working group.
Yeah. I'm just waiting on them to decide on the dates, which will be when the program is announced. Then they give us which 2 dates we get.
Okay, awesome. Fantastic. All right. I feel like this is another Roxanne thing. Is there anything that I can do to help you out here?
On the
On
planning of
the
it.
meetup stuff.
Oh, well, the meetup we can talk separately. You meant the lunch thing?
Yeah.
Oh, the lunch thing is very easy. I just email Open Source Summit and say I want a room of this size, and they say you have one, and they give me the number, and then I make a little card. So
Okay.
that's not a big deal.
Fantastic. Well, I think that sounds good. Future steps in terms of what we want to cover next meeting, let's focus on just reviewing a landing page, and I'll work with you to kind of get some of that content in there and seeing what the next steps are for the landscape. I think that's a pretty good scope. For birds of a feather discussions, we'll probably wait 2 more meetings before we start having those to do some promotion around it. I think that there's some really good discussion topics, but even just kicking off with CI/CD in general for AI ML workloads or batch processing. I think that's like very easy for people to jump in on. I think that it's core to what we do, and it's a very good scope. So
And feel
unless
free
anybody
to
has
post
any,
in the general Slack, like we're meeting
yes.
tomorrow, because I always post. I feel like people do listen, but I don't want it always to be me.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Awesome. Well, we can give people, folks some time back. Roxanne, if you have a few minutes, maybe we can continue this meeting and go through some housekeeping stuff. But if there's any other closing notes, I'm definitely, opening the floor up now. But otherwise, thank you so much for everybody coming and anybody who's watching this meeting back.
I'm guessing once I join the Slack channel, I will have access to the blog formats and the guidelines and things like that. I
Yeah.
think I'm trying to find answers to two things. One is the format, and then how do we decide what topic do we pick to write about or contribute towards?
Yeah. Have you filled out our interest
Yeah,
form
yeah.
then okay. Awesome. So generally right now our blog post formats and stuff are in the drive. So we have a little template that people can follow. And like I think this one is a good example of just, kind of figuring out what kind of content we would want. This is a pretty exhaustive one. It doesn't need to be this formal, but
Okay.
generally this kind of helps us understand if you have a specific topic that you want to write about, or if you have a few different topics, this is the place to do it. So if you're like, I'm very interested in, say, CI/CD or observability, we can discuss and hammer down a little bit further what a good blog post might be, and then we can get started on some of those outlines, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Now, did you have an idea for a blog, or are you still kind of figuring out?
No, I don't have.
Yeah,
My biggest challenge right now is it feels like almost every topic has been covered by somebody at some point in time. So how do we come up with those new
yeah.
perspectives or new ideas? So that is what I'm trying to do is just go through different conference videos and blogs and links to understand, okay, what are they doing? And then trying to tie in what my team does, what we do here at our organization to see,
Hmm.
is there something new we are doing, or it's been a
Yeah,
very humbling experience, I will say that. It feels like what we are doing at the company is so simple versus all the modernization that's happening across the world.
yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to send out surveys to people or conduct a survey across the way, I don't know, McKinsey or Pew, and I forget the research institute, they send out these things to understand what are people interested in. So we are
Yeah.
able to. I know there's a
So
lot that can be done, but yeah.
I would even argue that constantly writing about the new and cutting edge stuff can be an anti-pattern in some ways. I think that a lot of folks who come to a meeting like this actually kind of do want an overview. And the reason for that is because the point of a group like this is to teach DevOps engineers basic data engineering and AI engineering concepts, and then vice versa is to make data engineers and AI engineers aware of what DevOps tooling currently exists and what some of the terms are there. And so don't feel like there's this barrier where in order for me to write a blog post, it needs to be something completely new. Most of the most popular blog posts, actually, including mine that I have out on Medium, are the basic overviews. Are like, this is just a very straightforward overview because it reaches the largest audience.
Okay,
And you'll
okay,
find
okay.
that the most cutting edge and new stuff actually doesn't have as much readership because there's so much background knowledge that's needed, right? And so you're more than welcome to write multiple blog posts. Don't feel like you have to restrict yourself to one. If you want to write a primer to a future blog post that you're doing, make it a two-parter. I would be super supportive of that as well, right? Don't feel like, because this architecture isn't like cutting edge and crazy that you have to, dumb yourself down. I think that what you're working on is probably more realistic and true to what most companies are doing, which is important than, whatever we're using the most cutting edge Databricks and Kafka Airflow, like whatever crazy tools, those are pretty standard tools, but generally speaking, there's some stuff out there that is really new and cutting edge. And if you stay on social media, you'll think that everybody's using them, but that's really not the case. And we know that.
That's very
And sometimes
reassuring to
simple
hear.
is better.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, what we have works really well for our company, and we don't even have to maintain it like Touchwood. So it's
That's
very
true
reassuring
DevOps.
to
That's
hear.
the most DevOps thing I've ever heard.
And
That
I
was
think
the
that could be a
Right?
blog post. Here's what we do. It's simple, but it works.
Yeah.
And then you only add what you need when it, to make it better, but not to
Yeah.
break everything.
That's exactly the type
Yeah.
of stuff that we want to feature. So
Okay, that's
yeah.
actually very good to know because the feedback I received from my VP and SVP was, "Oh, I didn't even know that your team existed." But I'm like, "Hey, this is what our team does. This is we are the backbone. We are like a submarine, so everything is smooth. Oh, you need more visibility." I'm like, visibility is a bad thing in DevOps. We get
Yeah.
called out only if something breaks. So
Yeah,
that's
I would
easy.
love to have a blog post like for you outlining the role that your team has and how it got to that place currently and how it enables the rest of the organization so that then other organizations, especially in vertical industries, can look at that and go, maybe we're not giving those guys on our company enough credit, right? Maybe we should start implementing what they're doing. And this is a great example of how organizationally they function and how they're enabled and why it works so well.
Sounds very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to reading it and to pushing it out.
Yeah, I'll start putting something together and then.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, once we give you Drive access, feel free to just create a Google document and you can just throw some notes in and feel free to directly ping me or Roxanne and we'll kind of start getting some other folks contributing if need to, or editing on it, whatever you feel comfortable with. And there's no rush.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Okay. Yeah,
I
I
will
think
drop
that's
off then. Thank you so much.
yeah.
See you next
All right,
time.
go on.
Right.
Take care.
I think that's it. I'm gonna put, I don't even know what to call that blog post.
Keeping it simple.
Yeah, keeping it simple. There we go.